Hi, I'm Emily Brasher reporting for WorldBytes.
Although almost everyone formally agrees that democracy is a good thing,
3 years after Trump's election and the Brexit referendum,
Some are questioning the role of the masses in directing society.
I'm here in East London to find out
how the people of Dalston feel about this issue.
What is your opinion on democracy in Britain?
It's funny because we moan all the time, but I feel like we're pushing for some niche equal rights. Do you know what I'm saying? Like this day and age, we're talking about transgender and stuff. That's kind of big that we're talking about that in the mainstream. There has to be an element of democracy in order to have that conversation.
Do you believe that voters should have some kind of expertise or a certain level of education?
Their situation is their expertise. They're voting based on their own life experience.
What do you think will happen if the referendum is not respected?
I already think it hasn't been respected. The politicians that are representing us aren't showing it respect. They're not. And do you know what? It was probably the most legitimate vote I've ever been a part of because it was person by person and it wasn't in sectors. So in my borough, in the borough of Greenwich, it will always be Labour. You can vote anything, you vote BNP, but it's still going to be Labour because it's a majority Labour stronghold, right? Vote Remain or Leave, that was person for person, every vote was for that side. You didn't feel like your vote was wasted based on where you live, basically. But I don't think that it's being respected by the politicians. I do think it should be respected.
What do you think of the House of Lords and the fact that we have unelected members?
They have a title on something that it's not a public vote, it's not a public say. It's something that they have established for themselves years and years ago.
I think the system seems very antiquated, to be honest. Yeah, all these rituals like swearing an oath to an old stick and all this, it just seems ridiculous. And also, yeah, I think the whole system needs to change really. To what though exactly, I don't really know. But
what are your views on democracy in Britain?
It's different compared to some countries. To me, it's a different strategy they use in terms of demonstrating democracy because still it have the bureaucrats, it have the very rich, it have the very poor, it have destitutes, it have everything here. It's free health care and that kind of thing. But still, while that is happening, they still have a class division. But people in the United Kingdom, they know there's a hierarchy. And they also know there's a middle class, and there's a working class, and then there's, even now when you look at the country, you see a lot of people coming in terms of you've seen people camping on the street and sleeping rough and everything. All of this happening here.
What are your views on those who want to stop Brexit?
I don't support the idea of stopping Brexit because people voted and 52% of the population wanted to leave. And I think we should at least give Brexit a try. I mean, even if it doesn't work out in a couple of years, we can always try and get back in later. If it's clear that doesn't work out.
The fact that people are voting one way and the government is actually going against what the people have voted, it would suggest that there is no form of democracy, which is a bad thing because at the end of the day, we elect people on the basis that they're going to listen to our opinions. So for me, the current politicians either need to regroup and we need to re-vote, or we just need to overthrow government. I mean, I know that's quite a political statement, but power in numbers at the end of the day. And if enough people believe that the system is defunct and it needs fixing, then we should come together and make it happen.
How do you feel about Britain's current political situation? Should they have gone through with Brexit?
I think it's a really difficult one because I think there's two sides to every coin. My opinion is that democracy is democracy and perhaps we should have followed through with it, but then another note is we were lied to about what was actually going to happen, so is that true democracy? So I think I would like to remain, so I'm probably a little bit biased, but I just think it's really tricky, to be honest.
So what is your view on the House of Lords?
Well, it's an unrepresentative institution, it's a throwback, but on the other hand, politics is so bad at the moment, it's nice to have a review, even though, these are unelected people from the aristocracy. Yep.
What are your views on the monarchy?
It's a bit of a laugh, isn't it?
I'm sort of 50-50 on the monarchy, to be honest. There's stories about, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's, funds, how they fund their property and things like that, and whether it's our money and stuff. But, in general, they're harmless, to be fair. Yeah.
How would you describe the state of the British democracy?
How would I describe it? I think it's all a bit of a myth. I think perhaps it's a distraction, and that actually we don't really have that much of a voice or any at all, really. And it's beyond our control, and maybe that's really pessimistic. But given the way things are and the whole mess of the situation, I think it's a corrupt system, and it's not really down to us, and we don't really have the choice.
So what do you think about the state of British democracy? The government didn't implement what the majority thought for Brexit.
Unfortunately, I think that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And I think that they say about this Brexitism's racist. There's no racism involved. It's a case of if you've got nothing and you're kind of getting on the ladder, in order now to buy a property in London, the prices are astronomical. You know, the people that have got something want to stay, and the people that got nothing want to leave because they feel that it's like shaking the tree and maybe some apples might fall out and the lower people might get something. But it's all done for the rich, it's not done for the poor.
The current state of democracy in the UK, I think it's in a lot of trouble. I mean, you see like the voting system we have kind of relies on like one party having lots of support, and at the moment you've got like 5 different parties all like vying for different voters, and the next election is basically going to be a massive shit show because you're going to have a million different parties getting like really weird numbers of votes, and the voting system in this country basically doesn't work, so that it means that like so many votes in so many different areas of the country are really wasted, and so that definitely needs reform if we're going to like be able to like actually represent people's votes properly.
Well, Parliament's in a really bad way. I think it feels like we don't really have an effective government at all, so it feels like what I think of democracy or what I think of our government are two quite different things. I think democracy is hardly even effective or even working or even exists anymore.
So what is your current opinion on Brexit and how the nation should deal with it?
I think it's all a bit depressing, really, because I think for particularly young people, and I teach in a school, so I think for them they feel it personally because they had no involvement in the Brexit decision, but Brexit's going to really affect them. So on my part, I think the future for Britain and for young people is a bit depressing at the moment because of the uncertainty.
We don't have no democracy at the moment, and we ain't gonna have none then. But I'm glad for Brexit. I want it to happen.
Do you believe that the traditional two political party system is the right way to go, or should we look for an alternative method?
No, the two-party traditional system is breaking down. There's no doubt about that. So things are fragmented, and of course that reflects the wide diversity of people's opinions, both rational and emotional. So it'll be interesting. We're in a very transitional period. I think that the countries like this one, North America, Europe in general, it's lived through 70 years of post-war prosperity and peace, and I think people have taken all that for granted. So they don't realize that if you start chipping away at that, shall we say, neoliberal agenda, they're doing so without realizing the possible consequences and repercussions.
On democracy in Britain, I mean, that's the irony is coming from the Brexit vote, is that we purport to be a democratic country. It was sold to us as a democratic vote, and therefore it has to be honoured.
In the aftermath of Brexit, do you believe that Britain's democracy is in danger?
Very much so. Very, very much. I think democracy is in big trouble at the moment, and I think left and right politics are in a lot of problems.
So you mentioned left and right politics. Obviously right now we have the two traditional party system. Do you believe that the government should look for alternative ways to...
I think it has no choice. For the last 10 years it hasn't worked. For the 10 years before that it didn't really work. Now the people aren't very happy, so I think something has to change.
But I'm not sure if there ever has been a democracy. Maybe for some people there has been a democracy, but I would question Britain being a fair country altogether. Obviously I don't want to leave the EU, my demographic does not want to leave the EU. I think the vote for Brexit was a chance for people that haven't been heard to be heard. But as well as that, it wasn't just working class people that voted for Brexit. It wasn't just the white working class. It was white homeowners with assets and savings who also voted for Brexit. So it's not all about people from the north. We should think about that as well as just pieing it off as uneducated people voting for Brexit, because that wasn't the case at all. People that have been to university, did vote for Brexit as well.